just so you know, if you're uncomfortable, because it is being recorded, I don't think that your picture shows, but if you want to blank your picture, feel free to do that if you'd like. So today we're talking about writing your personal statement. I could go on for days about writing your personal statement, but today I'm going to talk sort of very specifically and briefly about your personal statement writing. I know it's a very hard thing to do. It's very hard to sit and write about yourself, but we're going to go over today, if we have time, prompts on how to get started for those of you who may not have started writing things that you need to concentrate on to talk about in your personal statement. So the purpose of the personal statement. There's many parts of your application, and the statement of purpose or personal statement is just one part. It's a really important part because it's going to allow you to tell your own story, your unique story. And you're like, wait, how am I unique? How am I different from everybody else here who's done all the things I've done? How is my story going to be different? Well, it is because you are you. You've lived in your life. I like to use the sort of story that if I live in an apartment building and I'm looking out the front of the apartment building onto the street and into the city, and you're looking out in the back in the garden, we are in the same place, but we have completely different views. So in thinking about that, your life, your story is different. Who has been your caretakers, where you grew up, what your journey, what your life journey has been, is how you are unique. The personal statement will provide a context on why you want to pursue medicine and explain your passion and commitment to medicine. This is so critical to your personal statement, is the why. Why medicine? Any of you who've met with me and we've talked about this, I've pushed you on this. Why medicine? Well, I want to help people. Well, I help people. I like science. I like science too. Why medicine? There's many professions that you can do that include not only helping people, but an interest in science. So you have to dig deep on what you want to do, why you want to pursue medicine, why this is your calling, why it's your passion. How are you committed to medicine, or PA, or other research, versus the what you have done, which you'll share in your experiences in your activity section. So there's a why and there's a what. This is really your chance to show yourself beyond the MCAT and GPA numbers. It's true, you also have to have competitive academic metrics, so that is something important to remember too. There's a whole entire portfolio, I like to call the portfolio, that is your application, that shares all the things that you want people to know about you. It's going to have you stand out as an applicant. So the prompts, so mostly MD here and DO, so I'm going to just say this is the MD prompt, 5,300 characters, about 700 words, about a page and a half. So here's the prompt. Use the personal comments essay as an opportunity to distinguish yourself from other applicants. Some questions you may want to consider while writing this essay are, why have you selected the field of medicine? That's the big question. What motivates you to learn more about medicine? What do you want medical schools to know about you that hasn't been disclosed in other sections of the application? In addition, you might want to include information such as unique hardships, challenges, or obstacles that may have influenced your educational pursuits, commentary on significant fluctuations in your academic record that are not explained elsewhere in your application. So here's the DO schools. In the space provided, write a brief statement expressing your motivation or desire to become a DO. So keep your statement general, as the same essay will be sent to all schools you apply to. Even if you only plan to apply to one program, do not make your essays school specific, as you may decide to apply to additional programs at a later date. And once you submit your application, your essay cannot be edited or changed. So that's true with the MCAS application too. And again, don't forget to include the reasons that you want to study osteopathic medicine in your personal statement. So I'm going to skip through pharmacy, veterinary. Here's physician assistant for our physician assistant. In the space provided, write a brief statement expressing your motivation or desire to become a physician assistant. Keep your statement general, as the same essay will be sent to all schools you will apply to. So you can see they're similar in many ways. The med school one is pretty specific. And I think for PA, for research, I think you could use those other similar ones. So this is important. The personal statement is personal. Discuss you. This is all about you. I know it's really hard to do, but discuss you and your motivation for going into medicine. Again, that's the why. Why medicine? Why not something else? Why not another helping profession? Why not nursing, PA, physical therapy? These are all helping professions. And for PA, it's like, why PA? Why not physician? These are things you need to think about. Share your passion for the field of medicine. Obviously, you have a passion. You're working hard. You're really looking at how to do this, what you want to do, and how your experiences have demonstrated your desire to go into medicine. I really like this, what NYU Deans Rivera says about personal statement, so I put it in here. To be impactful, the personal statement needs to provide admissions committees with important insights into why an applicant has chosen to devote his or her life to medicine, and how they hope to improve the lives of those around them by means of their work as a physician. So there's a couple things in there. The why, and how you've done that, and how you hope to improve the lives of others. So a little bit of looking to the future as well. This is all going to sound pretty general, but it really is, because it's so unique to you, you have to really go in to look at what you are going to write and how it connects with who you are. So how do you write a unique personal statement? We connect through stories. In telling stories, that's what connects us with other people. That's what helps us remember who you are. So tell your story. Tell your own story. Don't tell somebody else's story. I can't tell you how many personal essays I've read where the first half of the essay is all about somebody getting sick or getting hurt, and the person who's writing a very nice essay about what happened to that other person. And I'm like, no, that's not it. You have to write about you. You can't spend your entire essay writing about somebody else. So write about you. Write your story. Somewhat of what you can do is reflect on what you have learned from extracurricular and work accomplishments. Describe these clearly and concisely. Also, I know this sounds general. I get into this a little bit more. Explain how these experiences provide for personal growth. Show admissions committees what makes you uniquely suitable for this profession. Connect with the reader through your stories. All right, your story. You want to stand out, right? So you realize, of course, most pre-meds have the same experiences: medically related volunteering, clinical work, research, community service, leadership, etc. So when you think about books, when you think about movies, the plot line can often be the same. Think of all the similar plot lines for books and movies, but the story, your story, is different because of how you have perceived and lived your experiences. That's the key thing. So keep that in mind as you go through. Also, everybody who's beginning to write their personal statement probably spends 6 hours searching the internet, reading other personal statements, reading what people say about them, when really your story is right there. Trying to do a template. I keep getting people saying, well, should I put in, a paragraph about my clinical work and a paragraph about my research and a paragraph about my leadership? And I'm like, well, is that telling your story? Don't try to use the template. Really kind of brain dump, think about what you want to, just kind of put stuff down, experiences, and I'll go into this a little bit more, and then begin to hone what that narrative, what that story is that really begins to come out to you. Here's some typical themes for personal statements. A life-changing personal experience with your health profession, such as a patient or a friend or relative, which led to an interest in your profession. So you could have seen somebody, a physician, maybe you had something going on. a relationship with a physician or other inspiring individual in healthcare. Also, how the decision to pursue a health professional career grew or evolved. It's not always an epiphany. So many students are like, I never had a huge epiphany. And I'm like, great, no problem. It's fine if it just evolves and you begin to see that, this is something that you like, that you really enjoy, and you keep getting validated, and that decision keeps getting reinforced through your experiences. So it's really important not to worry about having an epiphany, a car accident, or something where you saw a physician take care of someone or something like that. It can be your own growing story into wanting to do that. And then you can also have an experience that challenged or changed your perspective about healthcare. That can happen as well too. So there's kind of typical themes for that, and that's okay, because remember, there's similar plot lines, but everybody has a different story. So here's some things that it can help to begin to really think about your life events. I know some people who have sat down with 5 years blocks of time and said 0 to 5, what was important to me? 5 to 10, what was important? Kind of just going through until you got to high school and college, where those chapters in your life would get bigger and more meaningful. So some questions to get you thinking about: who are the most influential people in your life? What did they do for you? What have been the pivotal moments in your life? And maybe these are not all medically related, but in thinking about them, think about what has influenced you. What can you recall having changed you? How were you affected? And how does that create this feeling of a passion for what profession you're looking for? What is the source of that passion really? These are all hard questions. They're not going to be things that you just go yes, no. You really have to sit down and think about this. The process of writing your personal statement really is a process. It's a reflective process of really getting down to the why medicine. You've been busy going through classes, checking the boxes for clinical work, research, community service, leadership, doing all those things that you're expected to do. Now's the time to really sit back and think about this, because this is going to be your narrative for your interviews, not only your personal statement, but your interviews for when those people ask you, friends, family, medicine, why do you want to go into medicine? You're going to have a good answer for them. Another way you can start writing your personal statement is think about the strongest qualities, your superpowers. Maybe some of those superpowers were not ones that you want to write about. Your Netflix binging, maybe you could take your leadership or your compassion or your listening skills, and you can think, this is something that I really do well. When have I shown how I can do that? What about being a lifelong learner or just loving problem solving? You could talk about that as well, and maybe think about a time when that happened. So these are all skills that not only can you use as a way to begin to write your personal statement, but to weave some of those into what you're going to write. So you probably all know this, but I'm going to just lay it out here. Your first paragraph needs to be strong and grab the reader's interest. If you don't do that, you're kind of sunk. So it doesn't have to be absolutely shocking, but it has to be interesting enough. If I am on the admissions committee and I am reading, 1,000 personal statements, I'm going to want something that's interesting, because if it's not, I'm probably going to go off in my head thinking other things. So it is important how you write this. Tell your narrative, be sincere and concise. One of the ways you can begin to think about that is discuss why you pursued this at whatever experience you're talking about in the body of your personal statement. Mention how you felt during the experience. Describe what you accomplished and learned. Discuss how your experience affected you and the world around you. Describe how the experience influenced your decision to pursue medicine. Okay, so that's, if you keep these beside you, these ideas, these sort of questions, it's really going to help you as you begin to hone your personal statement into what admissions committees want to know. In the conclusion, you want to ideally tie in your lead paragraph with your conclusion. You want to include perspectives gained from your formative experiences. This is the time where you can actually say your positive qualities, not just show them, and explain your passion for medicine and how you want to use it to make a positive impact. Impact is huge in terms of wanting to go into medicine. So, another important thing is what we just said back here at this slide. You want to show, you want to share what you're doing. So you don't want to just say, I like to help others. How many times have you said when somebody's asked you about medicine, I like to help others? And I say, I like to help others, but I'm not going into medicine. So what you want to do is you want to show it by telling what you did. My caveat here is that, yes, there may be more characters in telling this like it is, in showing it, versus just saying, I like to help others. But it's so much more effective. So, for example, where I say, I like to help others, in showing it, assisting Mrs. Smith to the exam room proved difficult. Making small talk as we went slowly down the hallway, I discovered we shared a passion for cats. Her pleasure with this seemed to make the walk to the exam room easier for her, and her chronic pain seemed to lessen briefly. I realized the importance of how communicating an authentic interest in a person can make a difference in how a patient perceives and receives care, and how that small exchange brought joy to me. Is there a difference there? I think so. You're showing your ability to communicate. You're showing your ability to understand how being an authentic person and having an authentic interest, and that how this is such a satisfying exchange for you, and how that will lead to work, the joy of working with patients. Okay, so these are from a book, and the book is the Pre-Med Playbook, Medical School Personal Statement Guide by Ryan Gray. So here are two things that are talking about showing, not telling. So this is something that he had in his book. We'll just read it. New Orleans was hot and humid during the summer months of 2014. No surprise there. However, for a native Oregonian like me, waking up to 90-degree and 85% humidity days initially seemed like too much to bear. That was until I reflected on the fact that my temporary discomfort was minute in contrast to the destruction of communities and emotional pounding experienced by the people of New Orleans during and after Hurricane Katrina 9 years earlier. Although pictures and stories of the aftermath compelled me to understand its effects on the community and volunteer, actually building homes and interacting with the locals like 9-year-old Jermaine, who cried as I held his hand while we unveiled his rebuilt home, taught me that caring for people was as much about lifting spirits as making physical improvements. So, okay, so think about that one. Or one of my most eye-opening experiences came when I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity in New Orleans during the summer months of 2014. Up to that point, I had only heard about the destruction caused by Hurricane Katrina 9 years earlier. Although pictures and stories of the aftermath compelled me to volunteer, it was not until I observed the emotional pounding the people of New Orleans had experienced that I developed a greater sense of compassion for their plight. All right, a quick chat if you want to. The top one or the bottom one? Which one would you put in yours? Just want to see if you're all awake out there. Top. All right. Yay. Okay, you guys are on it. So you got that. Sorry, got excited here. Okay. Thank you. Yes, I think this one is much more compelling in terms of what students are learning. Okay. So here's something I want to talk about. This is a little bit about things that you want to really think about. Tragedies and emotional topics, deaths, accidents, assault, rape, abusive relationships, or abusive family members. When you're writing about these things, they may be things that have motivated you to go into medicine, and that's fine. But when you're talking about these, what message? Really ask yourself, what message are you trying to send? In the ideal scenario, you'll describe possibly what happened, but focus less on the event and more on how it motivated, captivated, or taught you. Being inspired and motivated by it is okay, but it's more important to speak to what you learned from it, such as a new perspective or skills. Here's something that's really important. If it is still fresh or difficult for you, you may need to reflect whether you're ready to talk about it. I've had situations where students have written about things and I have begun to talk to them about it, ask questions, and they burst into tears. You can see they're obviously distressed. If that's what it is, probably better not to bring it up. You reveal what you want to reveal. You don't need to reveal your whole life. This is not a life biography. You may get that in a secondary to UCSD or UC San Diego, right? But you don't need to do that here. So be careful about what you touch on in terms of this and how you frame it. And of course, if you have any questions about it, talk to us about it. We can help you frame it in a way that is more about how it motivated you or what you learned from it. Red flags. So there's some discussion. There's going to be some people who say don't include these. Some people who say, yeah, include these sorts of red flags, disabilities, mental health issues. Here's a couple of things that are kind of red flags. A downward grade trend. Upward grade trends are excellent to have, but a downward grade trend when you started off good, that can be something that they're like, what's going on here? And maybe you do want to talk about it. Maybe there were things that went on. Again, often these are things that you might want to talk to us about to see, is this something that I should discuss and how should I frame this? So lack of extracurriculars. Hey, we've been in a pandemic for a year. This might be an issue for some people that you don't have the extracurriculars that medical schools are still expecting. Alcohol or drug addiction. These are things that are also iffy things that depends on where you are in that. If these are issues that you might have had. Mental health issues. Depression is a common one for students. Not unusual at all, but often it's not one that is going to really keep you from going into medicine, or maybe you don't even need to bring it up. It's one of those things that you kind of want to think about. How am I framing this and what does that mean? Disabilities. So it really depends on the disabilities. But sometimes there are things that medical schools may just not want to have to deal with, and you're dealing with people who are like that, and that's not right in any way, but it is something that maybe you don't want to disclose it in your personal statement that goes to every school, but you could in a secondary or you could in an interview. In any way, be true to who you are and tell your story, even if it's any of those things that are above there. However, don't give admissions committees a reason not to interview you. You can share more of your narrative when you receive an interview. And again, talk to one of us about how to frame these if they're important and you want to write about them. I've worked with plenty of students who've gotten into medical schools who have talked about all of these things and still gotten into medical school. So it's not like don't put it in, but maybe think about how you're going to approach that and if it's necessary at this point in your application. So these are big red flags, and these also do not mean that you won't get into medical school, but it's definitely something that's on your application that needs to be addressed and not within your personal statement generally. So that's academic conduct violations and institutional actions, felony charges, misdemeanors. So if you've been accused of any of those, charged with any of those, be prepared to write about them on your application, and it's not in your personal statement. And then you'll probably have to talk about them as part of an interview. So again, developing a narrative that you are comfortable with, practicing it. These are things that we're often ashamed of, but if you've dealt with them, you have redeemed yourself, then, just build that narrative and don't be afraid to talk about it with confidence. So some common errors, too many I's, I did this, I did that, may indicate listing activities and not providing a narrative. So I get a lot of students who are like, I volunteered here and I did research there and I was a leader in this group. So you can't not have I's, but if you have too many, maybe you're listing activities and you're not reflecting on what you're doing and providing them the why that they're looking for. Don't try to impress with excessive vocabulary, complex words or sentences. If I have to stop and read a word that I'm not familiar with or something that is not clear to me, that stops me. And I'm like, if that happens, oftentimes I just skip over it, because then you're losing your reader. You want something that is not necessarily simple, but clear, crisp, concise, connecting the story with the reader. And again, critical, use the space, use your personal essay to talk about you. Again, don't use the 3 paragraphs to talk about somebody else and watching what they did. Don't include information that doesn't support your story. It's easy to go off on tangents. So something we're always looking at is how to cut things out, especially when it's 5,300 characters. You want to make sure that, again, you have something very concise. You want to hone it down to the important information, but make it very readable. Don't give weak excuses for your GPA or test scores. I have to say, Berkeley students are very high achieving. One of the things I want to say is, when you're thinking about resilience and grit, and you have a 3.7 GPA, and you feel like you should have gotten a 4.0, I'm sorry, that's really not grit. If you got a 5.12 on your MCAT, and then you were disappointed, and you had the resilience to go in and get a 5.15, that's not it. It's really not something they want to know. If you went from, starting off with a very low GPA and then had an upward trend, that might be worthwhile. Or you went in and took the MCAT and like it was a pandemic and you couldn't get in, or they canceled it multiple times, that's definitely something that could happen. And I also get students oftentimes sharing a whole lot about what they've learned in school, about social determinants of health, about this, about that, or in their research, going into lots and lots of detail. And unless you're going into research, MD, PhD, or PhD, I don't know that people really want to hear the entire sort of metabolic, part that you're working on in your research. If it's relevant, yes, you can bring it in, but don't try to tell the people who are going to be reading your personal statements, who are probably mostly physicians, stuff that they probably already know. And probably at this point, if you're applying at the end of your senior year, you can probably leave most of your high school activities behind. And I put an asterisk there because one of the things I'd like to say, if it's an activity that you have done through high school and through college, then that's a different story. You can include that as part of what you talk about. But if you won awards and you're really proud of something in there, it's probably time to leave that behind and concentrate on your college experiences. And of course, don't exaggerate or make things up. It's so tempting to do when you're feeling like you're not as competitive as the next person, but let them decide what that is. And humility is something that's very important to medical school admissions committees. It's a balance between showing who you are and having that humility. This is not a cover letter explaining everything that you can do. It is your story. So, helpful hints, revise, revise, revise. Okay, so it's typical to have somewhere between 7 and 12 drafts. Don't expect that your third one is going to be perfect. It goes on and on as you begin to think. Write it, put it away, come back, look at it. Is that seem right for you? What do you want to add? Keep a journal. Keep writing things down that pop into your head about stuff that's happened to you, events, experiences, things you're proud of, things maybe you're not proud of. That doesn't all have to go into your personal essay, but it's going to be important for you to kind of do that serious reflection. Of course, carefully check spelling, punctuation, grammar. I use Grammarly. I like Grammarly. I don't know how many other people may use Grammarly, but it definitely catches things when my brain just skips over them. Okay, very important. Read it out loud for flow and errors. There's nothing like reading something out loud that is different than reading it silently that helps you to catch the flow of something and how it sounds. And that's so important for people reading it. Have other qualified people read it and carefully consider their edits. This is so important. Be sure to weigh their suggestions against your own personal views, because no statement exists that all of your readers will unanimously approve of. Your mother is very biased. She's going to think anything you write is amazing. Most mothers are. But other people, your friends, may read it and go, hey, I didn't know that about you, or take that out. So really think about what you're going to put in there, because I think that's really important, that it is your personal statement and your story, and you have to make sure that that's what it is. I know people who get really derailed by listening to what other people have to say, and their personal statement ends up not being their personal statement, but somebody else's ideas of what they should write. All right, so everybody wants to know a really good essay.
Joe, sorry, we have a question in the chat. Did you want me to wait till the end, or?
Oh, well, I do have a place for questions. Go ahead.
Okay, I can ask it then if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you would like me to ask it now? Sorry.
Sure. This is a spot we can stop at.
Okay, great. So the question was, would it be okay to mention an experience where we began to realize medicine is something we want to do if it was in high school?
Yes, you can do that. And that's fine if you want to go back there. I was thinking about talking about athletic experiences or things like that. So here's an essay, and I can read it out loud, or you could probably read it also, but I'll read it out loud kind of quick, just because I know our time. This is written by a student who actually got a full ride into medical school. So just goes to show, you never know. Only one school offered him a full scholarship. So I'm 16 years old, sitting next to Art, a family practice physician from Massachusetts. I'm in the tiny mountaintop village of Tacachico, El Salvador, on my first medical mission. Griselda, a young woman no older than me, takes a seat before Art. He looks into her eyes, smiles softly, and invites her to speak. Griselda rattles off a list of unimaginable hardships: the barefoot miles she had walked to the clinic, the many untended children at home, the scarcity of food and clean water. The list goes on. All the while, Art is listening intently. After some time, she comes to her chief complaint, a yeast infection. He addresses the infection, prescribing medicine and proposing measures to prevent reoccurrence. But Art is not finished. He takes Griselda's hand in his, giving her his fullest attention. Art returns to her other complaints. He goes through them one by one. Where he can give advice, he does. Where he cannot, he simply listens again, sympathizing and consoling. What I first saw in Art was the healing touch, a medicine beyond drugs, sutures, and stabs. This was a practice of patience, held hands, attentive eyes, and most of all, listening. He brought to each patient not only his ample science, but also his tenderness, his stethoscope, and his caring. Beyond merely the cure, Art healed. I had considered medicine as a career path before meeting Art. Afterward, becoming a physician became my ultimate goal. That medical mission, and specifically interactions like that with Griselda, were inspirational. What draws me to medicine is the confluence of hard science and face-to-face interaction. Physicians heal with the twin selves of human tenderness and concrete scientific knowledge. Bringing both fully to bear opens up vast possibilities for healing and betterment. Erring too far to either side can be treacherous, but when both aspects are aligned and in tune, the relationship between patient and physician is unlike any other. So what do you think so far? You feel like he's talking too much about Art, but is he kind of describing what he wants to? There's a lot in there. I went to college hoping to better understand this confluence of deeply human and the scientific. The liberal arts seemed to me to embody this confluence. At college, we read only original texts and held class by discussion. We read everything from the Iliad to Harvey's writings on the circulatory system. At college, I learned to think critically and in community. I learned to work with others to solve complex problems across the many disciplines of the Western canon. Most importantly, we read and learned with an eye to the human significance of discoveries and philosophies. For instance, we spent quite some time reading the monumental work of Watson and Crick on DNA. After chugging through the X-ray crystallography, we discussed the ramifications of their discovery. What might this newfound genetic code mean for curing disease, for insurance premiums, for freedom? We never lost sight of the human significance of science. Humanity alongside science is what seems to me essential in medicine. I have endeavored as best I can to bring this attitude towards healing to my volunteer efforts. My involvement in the diabetes home visit education program especially has offered me invaluable opportunities and lessons. Working on prevention and management of diabetes, I have had the opportunity to follow patient statistics over time, to take various blood tests, and to try my hand at explaining to patients the molecular ins and outs of their illnesses. We visited one of my first patients, Yasmin, over a year ago. At the time, she was overweight and struggling to control her glucose levels. We sat with her, explained the disease, went through a diet and exercise routine. I saw Yasmin during a follow-up visit a few months ago. I was immediately struck. She had lost at least 30 pounds. Holding back tears, she told me her glucose levels were finally under control. I cannot express the joy of having been even a small part of Yasmin's healing. The diabetes education program allows me to participate in both the rigorous science and interpersonal connection involved in healing. Has allowed me to follow patients over time, to build connections with them and watch them heal. More than just blips on a spreadsheet before me, I have been blessed to watch patients grow, learn, and heal. Watching the physicians, patients, and other educators in the program has proved a wonderful lesson in healing. Like Art, I hope to be a family physician. It is in primary care and specifically in family practice that I feel I can best practice medicine as I saw Art practice it, a practice of listening as well as treatment, of understanding as well as prescription. I hope to see patients throughout their lives, to stand by them in the worst of times, to watch them grow. Someday I hope to have the skill and ability to impact someone as Art impacted Griselda. Medicine affords the possibility of such a relationship between patient and practitioner. I hope to be a part of it. So what do you think? Pretty good? What did he hit in there? He hit what he does, teaching. He hit what he wants to do, the impact. He gets in there about learning and humanity, humility of working with people. I think there's a lot there. I'm just going to go to the next one as a contrast. And of course, this next one, I'm probably just going to read a couple paragraphs. So my concept of a meaningful direction of efforts is the product of shaping by many experiences over time. It provides my framework for planning actions in the long run. Are you guys like me going, what? So, an early form took shape during childhood in experiences with my grandparents and other family members. My father's parents impressed me. So it's kind of like, I don't really know what this is saying. So, you know, in reading this, I'm kind of like, I would feel like I needed to read it, but I'm not really getting a story there. So I'm not really going to read the whole thing. If you want to read the whole thing, when I send the slides out, you can. So this is just something that I kind of put in there as a contrast. With this particular student, we probably did 15 drafts before the student finally got to a good personal essay. And he got admitted. But you can see how you can start off with something and it can be awkward, different, and not totally there. This wasn't the final one, so I kind of put it in as a contrast to the other one, which is quite the finished one. So here we go. I'm going to go back to my assessment. It's getting a little time. What I have here, if anybody wants to continue here, is I have writing prompts. If you want to do this, I'm going to go back here to this. For me, let's see, do this. Let's see. I'm going to go back to my questions here. You answer them if I can. All right, so I know this is, so this is for me, guys. I need you to help me out here for my survey questions. Presentation helped me gain a clear idea of what a personal statement should convey. Thanks, guys. All right. It's okay to put not really if it didn't really. I'm okay with that. Okay, are we done? Thank you. Okay, whoops. I think I lost my Minty. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Oh, shoot, that was awkward. Okay, here we are. Let's try this again. Okay. So here's the next one. I have a better understanding of what not to write about. If I leave it in this, can you answer that? Can you guys see that one? Is that on share? Can you guys see that? So there you go. I know it is a little bit confusing about what not to write about, and I think that's one of the things that is worth conversation oftentimes. Because so many of those, what I sort of put in the tragedies, things like that, are things that could have had a huge influence on you. Thank you. And one more. This is a place you can write in. You know, feel free to write, how could this presentation be improved to help you in beginning to write your personal statement? So your personal essay. If you have ideas about that, please put them in there because I need to be able to see those. And if you have, if you always want to email me separately, feel free to do that. Am I sharing that screen? There you go. Yeah, if I had more time, I'd go over more concrete examples. I'm always worried about the time here, trying to keep it to an hour. So can happy probably do that at some point, maybe in another presentation, or you can always come in. You can ask me. I have tons of personal statements. I'd be happy to go over what I have with you. And there are quite
Joe,
a few.
would you like me to stop the recording?
Oh, yes, that'd be good.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for doing that.